Alright, so I got a little upgrade to my off-grid solar EVSE project going on here. I upgraded the 1000 watt inverter to a 3500 watt inverter, which takes thicker cables. The cables had a smaller hole on one side, so I actually had to drill out the hole to be bigger because my battery posts are like super huge, mainly because they deliver a lot of power. I'm having an issue trying to ground the inverter, so I do have a cable here that goes outside, and it is actually buried under the ground, so I'm not sure what's going on of why that's recording a open ground fault. Like even when I turn this off, why is it not turned off? So it seems like this overrides that switch. I don't like that one bit. You can see the blinking because there's open ground. And I even tried connecting the ground wire to here instead. It still doesn't work out. I've tried touching ground to different parts of the case. Can't get it. So let's actually try hooking this up. So we got the EVSE with a kilowatt meter connected here. So we're gonna connect that in. We've got voltage, we've got power, no faults on that one. And let's go down. It's not even a watt of power right now, just to power that on. All right. So let's do the actual test. And the batteries are fully charged right now. So let's see if we can power this by the sun. It's gonna beep and shut off or not. It's charging. Fans came on. I can hear some kind of buzzing in there. Look at that. So even though this guy over here said 1000 watts, and this is under 1000 watts, I think that guy splits the wattage between the two plugs to be 500 watts each. So this guy is doing perfectly. He's good. It says it's only got half the battery now. So the this guy says 75% battery. This is 76%. This guy's getting 16 amps at the moment. That's a 48 volt system. Let's just take this off. Fans running on the charger. There's a yellow light and a power light. So I think the yellow means it's charging, power means it's on. So kind of a cloudy overcast, not much sun today. So we're not going to get much in the way of power coming in from solar. So I think we've got 16 watts coming in from solar. So this guy's not going to be charged up for well. He can definitely take care of the amperage. These were in the car and they were handling about 300 amps. That was at 48 volts. And here's my grounding wire, the green one that's connected to the case. runs over, and then I stripped the wire to bury it under the ground. So I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong here. I had assumed that would be good enough, so I gotta do some research to figure out why grounding is not working. Because I would like to be a bit safer. And that's the little grounding clip that came with the inverter. The voltage is normal. We're in boost mode, charging. When we look at our voltage, we're almost in the yellow zone, which is exactly 12 volts or under. And you can see our battery voltage over time was starting to go up as the sun went up. And now it's like, it just dropped really far down in there. State of charge, it's less than 50% according to this. So, and here's our what's coming in from the solar panels to charge. So we're only getting 0.4 amps, which is just under 5 watts. So 5 watts is being contributed to the car at the moment. All right, I'm not quite sure what the amp hour rating is on these. I think they're meant for like RVs or large diesel trucks to start their motors. Who knows? But this is going over 100 amp hours. I would say maybe 30 minutes of charge that I can get out of this. So for anyone who's wondering why I get such low wattage with my solar panels, first off, they are amorphous panels, which is like the lowest power panels you can get. They don't produce as much as the monocrystalline panels. I've got an overcast sky. It is morning, and I'm under the impression that some of these panels might not be supplying power to this. I need to do a few tests to figure out if all of those have a good connection or not. But it doesn't say low input voltage, so we're still good there. But if the batteries go too low, the solar charge controller kind of like disconnects power to the Raspberry Pi, but the Raspberry Pi does have its own battery backup, so it'll still operate. I think it can operate for like 24 hours without being powered on. And this guy will be able to recover and turn himself back on. There we go. Let's see why what's going on here. So there's no change in the watts. Somebody found some crickets, but it seems like this is just trying to adjust the power to cool down on its own. And there we go again, it's cooled down. I think I'm actually in luck in being able to figure out the usable battery capacity because I am recording every minute the battery voltage, and I know there's pretty much a constant of 850 watts being used. So once the battery cuts out, I'll be able to do some calculation and figure out how much capacity was used, because it was pretty much a full battery. You can see it was starting to approach 14 volts as the sun was coming up. So the battery's almost dead. So we're gonna have to let the sun charge it up soon. All right, it's been almost an hour for this guy charging, and the wires seem fine. We're still running at about 850 watts. So these guys are losing their charge kind of slowly. So I'm really impressed. They have more capacity than I thought, going almost at an hour now. All right, so it's been over 2 hours, and I'm just coming out to take a look at the car and see how it's doing. The lead acid batteries are almost drained, I think. And the lithium batteries have more capacity than than the lead acid batteries, but I'm surprised they've actually lasted this long. I'm probably going to go ahead and buy a grounding rod to hammer into the ground just outside the garage, and hopefully that'll take care of the grounding problem. Given I'm only getting at most 40 watts of power from the solar panels, I'm probably going to go ahead and purchase some real solar panels that can actually recharge the batteries a bit quicker. At this point, it's going to take many days, very many days, to recharge these batteries just with the solar alone. All right, so we've got a report that we're now under voltage. So you can see it, the needle is in the yellow zone at this point. So this is not an ideal state to be in, because once you go under 12 volts, you start damaging the batteries. So stated charge, I'm looking over here. What I'm noticing is it kind of goes up a little bit before it goes down. And I think that's because as I turned on the inverter in the morning, which was around here, you can see the amps are going up a little bit, as well as the watts. So that's pretty much when the sun was coming up, and this is pretty much the peak throughout the day, probably around 1 o'clock. So quite interesting. So we're gonna let this go and see how far the inverter will keep drawing power to see when it shuts off, and hopefully we can get an idea of what the battery capacity is that the inverter is drawing from. All right, so there's a little bit of a status update here. I had to take off with the car, so my whole idea of trying to figure out how much capacity these batteries could actually hold just went right out the window. But the good news is they lasted almost 3 hours, so I think they have at least 300 amp hours in them. They're almost depleted. They're right now the solar charge controllers reporting them as being under voltage, but it's still supplying power to the Raspberry Pi, so its own load shutoff did not trigger just yet. And this guy was still charging when I disconnected the power from the car. So the batteries apparently are not in a too bad of a state. I'm just not comfortable with how low they are. I do have an old battery charger here, but this one has an issue where I can hear something inside rattling around. So I'm looking for my other battery chargers. Just have something that I feel okay being out of sight. And I was gonna go ahead and charge these back up to the grid. Currently, with the wattage that my solar panels can deliver, it's like 40 watts. It's just not going to cut it. It's going to take many days for these guys to be charged back up. So I put in an order for some solar panels with a 500 watt polycrystalline system. So that should help restore the batteries quicker. And it comes with its own solar charge controller, which I believe uses the same protocol as this guy with Modbus. I might be able to use both of them, but for now I'm probably going to just use the newer one and maybe use this for something else. And I think once this whole system gets set up to a nice state, I might actually look into putting a shed out back, so I have kind of a more ideal situation to put solar panels on a roof, because right now they're just sitting upstairs on the deck. But yeah, keep looking forward to new videos. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be posting a lot more stuff about what's going on with solar in the future with this guy. But yeah, I love the fact that I can use that inverter now. He's huge, but he works. I know a lot of people complain about these guys, and a lot of people say it's good enough. The main reason I got the inverter was because there's a data port on front, and since I was able to communicate with the Modbus on this guy and get a ton of information I wouldn't otherwise be able to get access to, I'm curious if this guy can do the same thing. So I'm gonna have to dig around and see what kind of protocols I can dig up, see if there's an API. And that's about it. So yeah, stay tuned.